Welcome to the Expressoul Health and Wellness Podcast. In each episode, you'll learn from experts about the best practices and technologies to live a happier, healthier, and hopefully a longer life. Here is your host, Claudia Erdenola.
What is keto diet? And what are the difference between keto diets and carnivore diets? We're going to talk about it today with Craig Emmerich. Craig is a best-seller author. He's an engineer, and he dedicated his life to nutrition, understanding how the human biology works, and teach and help the people around the world of getting back to their best health through the keto diet and the carnivore. So we're going to talk about what are the benefits of going into the keto and carnivore diets for better health. We're going to talk about metabolic diseases such as diabetes and how we can reverse diabetes or prevent pre-diabetic conditions. We're going to talk about these protocols of keto for weight loss, maintenance. We're going to talk about the implications on keto, on hormones, and sleeping. Many of these subjects are in our podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Help us to spread the word on wellness. And please, if you are so kind to write a good review right here, I would appreciate it. That way, many others will find our podcast content, and we will help spread the word on wellness. Here with us, Craig Emmerich. If you like the content of our podcast, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button. Help us to spread the word on health and wellness. Also, check out our sponsors as we have great discounts for our listeners. And follow us in our social media outlets. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. Aloha, Craig. Welcome to Expressoul Health and Wellness Podcast. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Amazing, amazing. How's everything in beautiful Maui?
Great. Got a pretty good storm going through right now. Actually lost some power this morning, but otherwise we're doing good.
Okay. I'm glad you're here with us. Craig, you are an engineer like me. You like to go deep into the understanding how the systems works. Tell me how an engineer like yourself ended being so interested in the nutrition world at the point that you dedicated your latest years to nutrition and helping others and writing your books and helping others to heal and improve the health conditions through nutrition and diets.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long story, but basically my wife got into it for her own health. She started she had these issues of PCOS and acid reflux and around the time that I met her, and she just started figuring out, what would work for her and reading every study and book she could get her hands on, because she went to school for nutrition, but it was the same food pyramid, kind of healthy whole grain, kind of talk that she was already doing, and it wasn't working. And in the process of finding what works for her, she just started helping others, because people would ask her, "What are you doing? You look great. You're feeling great." It took me a little longer. I'm a stubborn German background, so I like to brew my own beer and everything. So it took me another 5-6 years to come around. But once I did, I don't know, 16, 17 years ago, where I just started eating this way all the time. Also, I just felt so much better. And it came to a point where I was still an engineer at that point, electrical engineer and product management, and it got to a point where our business was doing so well with her that I just decided, I have a passion for this too. And if I just pulled away and dedicated my time to our business, we'll be better off in the long run. And it worked out that way. And so for the last 10, 12 years, I've instead of studying, engineering, I've been studying biology and nutrition.
So beautiful. I'm an engineer still. I work for the state of Florida, and I do my podcast after work. But I also understand that you were diagnosed with Lyme disease, and you basically recovered yourself through keto carnivore diet. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, one of the reasons I couldn't convert over to the lifestyle as quickly as my wife is because I didn't have any health issues back then. So I didn't have that kind of pressing need to change. And, I ended up losing like 30 pounds, which is nice, but I didn't, it wasn't another pressing need. About 8 years ago, I started having this pain on my back. It moved up in my neck, shoulders. And eventually I finally, I was eating keto, which is very low inflammation and very helpful for this type of situation to begin with. And I had been eating that way the whole time. I think it made it so that I was able to let it go longer than I probably should have, because the pain was managed. And what happened was I finally got to a point where I had to do something because I couldn't throw a football as far as my 8-year-old. Like, things were not good. And so then I went in and through a process about 5 years ago, got diagnosed with Lyme disease. And one of the things I knew about carnivore diets is that for people in those situations with Lyme or chronic pain, going from keto to carnivore, it actually helps even more. And I saw that myself. When I went to carnivore, eliminated all plants, I did see a reduction in pain as well.
So that's great. So when you change from your keto diet to the carnivore diet, what was the main change for you? You basically, because at keto you probably were under a very low carb diet already. So you basically eliminated all of your carbs and went only to consume the animal proteins. Is that what happened?
Yeah, when we look at the way we look at keto and carnivore in this space, and when it comes to healing, weight loss, etc., we look at carnivore as just keto without plants, right? You're taking, take away the plants and you just eat the animal proteins, eggs, maybe dairy if you're tolerant to it. And yeah, that's it. So you just kind of cut out all the plants. For us, that's the only real difference from a diet perspective. Because we don't do a lot of the traditional keto things that are out there. Like we don't do any of the packaged products. Like we tell people if it says keto on the label, it's probably junk. And more often than not, it is junk when it says keto on the label. It's just processed food in a different form. We've always promoted a whole foods approach, even with keto or carnivore. It's always whole foods is best and nutrient dense foods. So it wasn't a huge shift for us, really.
Natural foods over any processed food, I will say. And again, when we have these conversations in other podcasts, sometimes when we see doctor to doctor talking, everything gets really technical. And the main consumer, the people out there like me listening, may get lost. That's why it's good that we have this conversation here. You have been an advocate of the keto carnivore diets and writing your books that have been so successful, helping others, hundreds of people around the world that came to your consultation for help. Let us understand, Craig, what is nutrient-dense foods and why the animal proteins are overall like at the top of the pyramid on the health nutrition.
Yeah. So, if you take 2 plates of food and you show anybody, I don't care if they're vegan to, carnivore or anywhere in between, if you show them 2 plates of food and you tell them there's the same number of calories on each plate, but this one plate has way more vitamins and minerals than this other plate, right? Everybody is going to say that one with more vitamins and minerals, more nutrients is healthier for you. That's
absolutely,
like, everybody understands that. And so when that's the approach we've always taken is let's stick with the whole foods that are going to have all those vitamins and minerals. And when about 6-7 years ago, when we wrote our keto book, I had been in this space for, 4 or 5 years already. And I had done a lot of research on biology and nutrition. And at that point, when I started writing, I was the first book I co-authored with my wife, Maria, and I did a lot of the science in it. And when I was doing this, I started making these charts of animal proteins like beef against kale, blueberries, apples, different things. And I started comparing like the top 13 most essential vitamins and minerals. Okay, like B vitamins and vitamin C, vitamin D. These most important ones, top 13. And on every one of them, beef was just blowing it out of the water. Even you look at these superfoods like blueberries or kale, they might beat beef on one of those vitamins and minerals. On everything else, beef is higher. And so if you really want the most nutrient dense food, it's going to be an animal protein.
Now, if this is so important to know, and again, the charts are there, the science is behind these facts. Why the idea of consuming more animal proteins is not widespread into our world, especially in the United States. I would say the animal-based diets have been very demonized lately. Why?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons behind it. I think the primary reason, and again, when I was making these charts 6 years ago for the book, I was shocked myself. I'm like, how do I not know this? How do I not know that, beef has all these vitamins and minerals in it? Like, how is this not common knowledge, right? And I think the big part of it is if you go all the way back to like the 70s and this whole transformation of diet recommendations to be, saturated fat leads to heart disease, and that whole, misunderstanding of biology, they then demonized animal proteins because they're high in saturated fats. And then these other studies that are, widely, observational flawed kind of studies, linking meat to cancer and these different things. What's happening is if meat is this bad guy, we can't say, oh, by the way, it's really nutrient dense. It's got all these vitamins and minerals. It's like, it's counter to the message, right? So I think that's why it's not, promoted or common knowledge, is because they think meat is bad. And so they got to promote, oh, these are your superfoods. These are your, vitamins and minerals over here in these vegetables and fruit. And in reality, almost all those superfoods, they're high in one nutrient. It's like, a vitamin A, like kale, vitamin A is really high. Everything else below average compared to beef. So it's kind of crazy.
And I'm telling you, when I was practicing engineering in Colombia, that was many years ago, building these bridges and roads, they were in pretty remote places. So the access to good nutrition was very, very limited. And I was a vegetarian back then. I was vegetarian for 9 years. Soon enough, 6 months into my project that was in a very remote area, I started losing my hair. My skin started looking scaly, very weak. I was sleepy all day. I went to the doctor, they run my test, and he was like, forget about this vegetarian thing, Claudia. You gonna have to eat meats again. And I was already 9 years without eating those proteins. Introducing them into my diet again was a process, but I am so glad I did, because I have been feeling amazing since then, and I just can't understand sometimes this misconception about the meats is so in the popular mind of the people that that's not good for you. Now, let me ask you something that this is very important. When we talk about these very dense nutrient foods as animal proteins, a lot of people, they think that they're gonna have to eat a lot of fats associated with the meats in addition to the meat. Is that a misconception, or how in the human biology, in your research and in your studies, that works best?
Yeah. So starting off, in general, you really have kind of two categories of macronutrients. Macronutrients are your fat, protein, and carbs. There's really kind of two categories because the body deals with them a little bit different, right? Fats and carbs are fuels, and protein is an amino acid, a building block. So the body really wants to use protein to build and repair muscle and repair tissues and, make hair and skin and all this stuff that it wants to use the protein for, the amino acids. Carbs and fat are the fuels. So if you compartmentalize them like that, you need a certain amount of protein based on your size, right? If you're 5 foot tall woman, you're gonna have a lot less muscle than a 6 foot tall, bodybuilder man. So you need a lot different protein goal for your day. But, whatever your protein goal is, that's how much amino acids your body needs to make hair, skin, do all the things it needs to do with your body. So that's kind of set. Then you got just the fuels, and the fuels are fat and carbs. And the way we look at it is, if you do a lot of carbs, you end up in this cycle where your hormones are constantly driving hunger. And if you're spiking your blood glucose, a falling blood sugar or blood glucose will drive hunger. If you're rapidly falling blood sugar, your body's gonna be like, "Ooh, I gotta eat. My blood sugar's falling fast here. I better." And what happens when you spike blood sugar? Well, it's gotta spike insulin to drive it down quick, because too high a blood sugar is gonna kill you. So as it's dropping, you get hungry again. That's why you end up in a cycle every 2 hours. Even though you eat a huge meal, 2 hours later, you're hungry again.
You're absolutely right.
So we don't look at carbs as should be your primary fuel. So we really recommend for everybody to have pretty low carbohydrate intake, like 20, 30 grams or less a day. So then that only leads fat, right? That's only variable left. And so that is the variable you adjust based on your goals. If you want to maintain weight or even gain weight, dial the fat and the diet up. If you want to lose weight, dial the fat and the diet down a little bit. So it becomes that easy.
Okay. In terms of the energy source, I have to say that in my own experience, it happens just what you described. When I was eating more carbs, then the sensation of feeling satisfied was less. You eat every here and then, so you don't let your body rest. You're eating constantly, and then those spikes of the glucose happen very often. Doesn't happen when I am consuming, let's say, a keto or more on the carnivore side diet, because I ate until I feel satisfied, and then I don't need to be picking. I just feel good. My energy level is more, I would say, is higher in the longer run. So I don't have to be eating or picking, and definitely that is a big benefit of eating on that side of the nutrition with the animal proteins.
Definitely. And there's, if you look at even just your body, how's your body designed? You can think of it like a car, right? If a car is a hybrid car, it can run off of gas or electricity, right? But if you think of it as, if it's a hybrid, you can run a lot further off the gas tank than you can off of just electricity in a hybrid car, right? Usually they're like 50-mile range on the battery, and then 200, 300, 400 miles on the gas tank. That's really the way the body's designed for carbs and fat. The carbohydrate storage on the body is pretty limited, maybe 1,500, 2,000 calories of carbohydrate that you can store. Fat theoretically is unlimited. Even a very lean athlete will have 20, 30,000 calories of fat on their body, but somebody obese has got millions of calories, stored on the body. So that's a big gas tank, and so if we tap into that gas tank and use that for fuel, it's just a much cleaner, more sustained fuel source.
It's a very good way to put that. Your analogy is just wonderful. Let me ask you something. Like, for example, last year, my husband and I went to a trip to Europe. We indulged too much into the carbs, picking here and there, and pastries and whatever. We came home and we were, over our normal weight. He was a lot more than I was, and we decided to start on a program, and we restricted our window of eating only for 4 hours, fasting for 20, and going more strictly into a keto, more on the carnivore side. I mean, he lost about 30 pounds in, let's say, 4 to 5 months. So it was pretty dramatic change, but it came to a point that he didn't lose anymore. Like, the body reaches a point of balance. And even he continued eating on the same window of time, the same amount of food, the same kind of food. He's not losing more weight. So why does that happen? It's like the intelligence of our body reach a point of balance. how that works on
Somewhat.
biology?
Yeah, somewhat. There's a lot of variables there, but one thing that is true is your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. That's the number of calories you burn all day long, just being you, and living, breathing, etc. But there's also just this what's called NEAT. It's non-exercise activity. So that's just walking around, going to the bathroom, cooking, those kind of things. And if you do all of that in the context of putting a 30 or 40 pound backpack on, you're going to burn more calories all day long, right? Because you got an extra 40 pound backpack you're carrying. Well, when you lose 30 pounds, it's like taking that backpack off, and now you're not burning as many calories all day long because you're not hauling that extra weight around. So there is some, if you lose weight, you're going to have a little bit less calories burned throughout the day because you're just not carrying the extra weight around. So that's part of it. And that's fairly common, especially, somebody's coming from the standard American diet and they've got quite a bit of weight to lose. Most of the time, if they go to carnivore, and as long as they're not adding in like dairy too much, which dairy is one thing that we will, even in a carnivore context, it's really easy to overdo. It's just something about it doesn't trigger satiety quite as much. And we will, if weight loss is a primary goal, we'll tell all of our clients go dairy free because it really helps. But in that context, they'll lose weight. Like they'll lose a good amount of weight, but usually they'll stall. If they're not tracking macros, they're not tracking, they're just eating till full. They'll lose some weight initially, but then they'll stall because first of all, you come from a standard American diet to anything else, anything whole foods based, you're probably going to lose weight because you're going from like the worst diet to something better, right? Whole foods. Secondly, because again, as you lose weight, the amount of calories you're burning all day long, just walking around existing, goes down. And so that's maybe the point where you got to start looking at, okay, what are my macros? Am I eating a little bit too much fat and not burning the fat on my body as much as I need to lose more weight? That's where you have to start looking at macros and tracking.
I think something that is beneficial for somebody that goes from the regular American diet, the standard diet, to one of these protocols on the keto or the carnivore diet is that soon enough they will notice the difference on the body composition because of the loss of the fat under the skin, the visceral fat, and also the water that is retained underneath. Basically, you look smaller in a very short period of time. So that is very rewarding. And then I would say the second thing that in our experience happened is that because you get so thirsty, you get in a different consciousness of hydration. So my husband specifically didn't like to drink water as much. Right now, he's so disciplined drinking his electrolytes. He feels like, it's a discipline. He feels amazing since is drinking it. He didn't have that habit before. So I guess it's just, in a way, a more proper way of eating, more appropriate with the biology of the human.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well. As initially, especially coming from like a standard American diet, that first week you're going to shed a fair amount of water weight. It might be 5 pounds, could be as much as 10 pounds of just water weight, because carbohydrates, with each carbohydrate molecule, you need 5 water molecules to store it. And so when you cut out the carbohydrates, you shed a lot of water weight, which is good. You don't want that retained water, the puffiness, all of that.
So you look smaller.
Yeah.
Right away.
And so you lose weight and you look smaller right away, fairly quickly usually. That's usually within the first week or two, you'll see that water loss. But yeah, then you're down to burning fat, which takes more time. Like generally we'll say to clients, if you're losing 1 or 2 pounds a week, that's a good sustainable weight loss. There are ways to speed that up a bit, but at the same time, 2 pounds a week, that's 100 pounds in a year. That's pretty impressive, right? So, that's a good sustainable weight loss. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened with your clients when they come and tell you, Craig, I'm feeling cravings. I used to pick a lot. What should I do? What is your recommendation for those that like to pick?
So, in general, we try to get clients to limit snacking because that's the kind of calories that, just can add up so quickly. And, especially when it's dairy or, grabbing a piece of cheese and another one, and a little later you grab another one, and it's like it all adds up. And, but if it's like cravings for sweets and sweet things, which a lot of clients will have, especially coming off of the sugar and carbs, that's where my wife comes in, because she is an amazing chef and she has so many incredible recipes that, she's converted everything.
For those listening out there, Maria Emmerich is the queen of keto recipes. And they are so unbelievable. I see that in the website, she has a variety of recipes and her books are very successful, helping many around the world to achieve the maintenance and losing weight through keto. So that's something good, because you need to be creative. Eating the same thing will bore anybody.
Exactly. And that's where she really tries to be creative with recipes and ingredients to make something that'll satisfy a craving for that sweet thing or whatever it might be, but do it with something that will actually help you, and weight loss and healing instead of hindering it. She had we were blessed to have Holly Berry get all of our books and she did some joint cooking demos with Maria on Instagram.
Amazing, with your son. That was beautiful.
Yes, it was pretty cool. And one of the things they cooked was her pudding. It's this, it's almost carnivore, but it's made with hard-boiled eggs to make it, and you make it into a chocolate pudding. And everybody's like, what? But like you said, the creativity, once you do it and you do it in a high-speed blender and you get it, it's like the richest mousse you've ever had. It's so good. And before the video, Holly Berry's like, honey, I am not eating pudding made from hard-boiled eggs
anymore.
And yet by the end, she is trying it and she's like, this is like the richest mousse I've ever had. She loved it.
Now.
So that's the thing that I think is pretty special about my wife, is that she can take different ingredients and almost like chemistry, like figure out how to get textures and flavors out of different ingredients, but still, keep it healthy.
60% of the diet on a regular American person is processed foods. And on the kids, what they are giving them in school is close to 70% of over-processed foods. How we gonna do, or what we can do, Craig, to spread the word on wealth and nutrition through this keto and more rich nutrient food for kids? What we can do? What do you think is we can do to make our contribution to that initiative?
That's a huge thing, and it's something that we work hard on as well, because with our sons, and we see it so much, and every one of Maria's cooking videos, at the end, one of our sons will usually be with her, and at the end they always say, cook with your kids. That's what my son Kai always says.
It's a good idea.
We think that's really important. We think it's important for kids to know what goes into their food, what their food is made of, and how it'll make them feel. And that education is so lacking today. Like, kids don't even know. They'll eat French fries all day long, but you show them a potato and they don't even know what a potato is. Like, they just know French fries, right? I mean, it's, there's no knowledge about their food that they're eating, what they're really eating. And so that's why we wrote recently our Sugar-Free Kids book, which we were, again, blessed to have Holly Berry write the forward to that. But that book is really all about not just recipes for kids that are healthy, but educating. Like, I wrote a lot of the front matter on that book, and I was trying to give, the science and high level approach of, what these things are. But what we did was we made it fun for kids too. And, kids or adults, I think, can learn a lot from that book. But it's done in a way that, like, we have these superheroes, and we have, like amino acids. We made them all with Lego blocks, like these building blocks, we tried to make it really fun, but there's a lot of education in there for that reason, to help educate kids on nutrition.
It's so wonderful that the people from Hollywood, like Halle Berry, getting into this movement of wellness and spreading the word of nutrition. I think this is great because it's so much somebody like her that has so much influence. She can totally help. And as I saw in your videos, they're compelling. She's cooking. She's one of us cooking our meals there in the kitchen, like mine or anybody else's. So it was great, and I think you guys did a great job on that part. Now, let me ask you something else. Let's talk about fasting for healing. What is your opinion on fasting? What would be like the ideal timing on fasting for somebody that, never tried it before?
First of all, we separate those into two categories. Intermittent fasting is where you eat, in a certain window of time during the day. Like you're talking earlier, 24, where you eat for 4 hours, then you shut down the kitchen and you don't eat anything for 20 hours of the day. That's what we call intermittent fasting. There's the other category is extended fasting or water fasting, where you eat nothing for 2-3 days. So I just make that distinction because we generally don't recommend extended fasting, especially when weight loss is the goal or just general health and whatnot, because you do lose muscle. So as you do an extended fast, you do lose some muscle. There's parts of the body that still require glucose, like red blood cells and heart tissues and brain. And so your body has to make that from protein, which if you're not eating anything, it's got to use your protein off your
own
muscles.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we don't really recommend that except rare cases, maybe for cancer or certain conditions, right? Everybody else, intermittent fasting is a great tool, and it's something that can really limit snacking. Like we talked with all of our clients, we say, make sure you shut the kitchen after dinner, especially, at least 3 hours before bedtime. Shut the kitchen down, no more calories. It gives your body time to rest, but it also, human growth hormone is very important for the body as well as for weight loss. And you get the highest spike of it a couple hours after you fall asleep. It's the body repairing. But if you eat right before bed, insulin is an antagonist to human growth hormone. So if insulin's high, you're not going to get that spike of human growth hormone. So if you eat something right before bed, especially if it's something with carbs, now you're gonna basically limit that HGH, human growth hormone production at night, which is not good. You don't want that. So as long as you keep it at least 3 hours before bed, but then, limiting snacking, keeping it in a shorter window of time, it becomes easier this way because you just aren't, like you said, you're not as hungry as often. So it's easy to skip a meal, because you're not having those cravings and hunger.
What about keto and hormones for men and women? Is that a direct effect into the hormonal cycles, affect them in a positive way? People that get from the traditional diet to the keto feel an effect on the hormonal levels?
Yeah, definitely. We, for I think 8 years now, we've worked with one of the top fertility doctors in the country, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Robert Kiltz out of CNY Fertility in New York. He gets some of the highest success rates in the country because he puts every single one of his patients on a keto diet, bordering on carnivore. And it's really good for hormones for a number of reasons. The carbohydrate intake, the sugars are definitely antagonists of those sex hormones. But what's interesting too is that all of your sex hormones are made from cholesterol. And so if your dietary cholesterol is low, then your liver's got to make it. And that puts a load on the liver, but also you don't have as much cholesterol around to make healthy hormones and those kind of things. So eating this way, actually, you eat more saturated fat and cholesterol, and you have more substrate for making sex hormones, which can really help with hormones. And then on top of that, when my wife had PCOS, you can really think of PCOS as essentially insulin resistance of the reproductive system. Because that's what we find with clients is that once they cut the carbs out, PCOS will become under control before too long. I mean, it takes time,
syndrome.
It takes, polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's really just like essentially an insulin resistance of the reproductive system. You cut out the carbs, you get a decent amount of fat to fuel hormone production, and things balance out pretty naturally.
It makes sense. And I was actually reading some stats about fertility levels in the United States right now. And it seems like the latest research is showing that the men in the United States are having 50% less testosterone than the men 30 years ago. It's so dramatic and nobody's talking about it.
And sperm counts are down, I think, like almost 50% over that time period. So
and it's mainly due to diet and toxics into the
part
food.
of it. It's a big part of it. I've been carnivore 5 years now, basically, and I 51 now, and I don't check it very often, but I just last year I had a whole bunch of labs run for my Lyme and situations I'm dealing with. My testosterone was 720, so.
Amazing.
You can
Amazing.
eat nothing but meat and have really good testosterone levels. And in fact, there's research and information behind, prioritizing animal proteins, and this kind of eating will really help with testosterone levels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to believe that our ancestors had a lot of that stamina from eating the animals they were hunting. They were working primarily with their bodies, because they were hunting, they were, nomads, just going from place to place. They had to carry their, belongings, the animals they were hunting. It was a lot of heavy lifting work, more than what we do today in our sedentary lives. So it makes sense that the animal protein help with the hormones and the testosterone and the stamina in general for men and women.
Yeah, well, and if you look back far enough, if you go back to our early ancestors, the Neanderthals and the early humans, they actually have done tons of studies now. There's dozens of these studies where they look at the bones of these Neanderthals and they look at the collagen. And from the collagen, you can actually see how much in the type of nitrogen that's in the collagen, and you can tell where their protein came from. So you can tell and you can even tell what kind of animals they were eating, what types of animals, what types of plants they were getting their proteins from. And study after study after study is showing that these early humans were primarily carnivore. They were apex carnivores. They ate more meat than lions of the period, or, these different animals. And they primarily ate big herbivores, things like, big woolly mammoths and elephants and these things. And so they'd kill one of these and they would feed off of it for months, right? I mean, think how big a woolly mammoth is, and for a small tribe of, hunters, and they feed off it for months. And that's why, they were primarily carnivores. They ate almost entirely meat. And that is the time period when we grew these big brains and became humans, right? And so that's a pretty important time period. And those people were eating nothing but animal proteins pretty much.
Now, something that they were doing also was eating the animal from nose to tail. And I come from Colombia, South America, and over there is no waste whatsoever. We ate the animals from the nose to the tail, and it's normal. I grew up eating the organs. For me, it's very easy. I ate, liver. I can chop the heart in little pieces with lime. I eat it like sushi. It's normal for me. But I understand people today, they don't like it. They smell. They don't like the texture. So it's something that introducing those organs into the nutrition should be something very valuable.
Yeah, if you go back to the nutrient density, like we were talking before, I also have one of the charts in our book has beef and then kale and other things. And then it also has beef liver, which is probably the most nutrient dense food you can eat, like bar none. Like it's off the charts on every vitamin and mineral. It's like it is the true superfood and of the, dietary world. But yeah, a lot of people are getting away from eating organ meats, but all organ meats are really great for nutrient density. And what we do is we tell people, take some beef liver. If you're averse to it, take it and, usually ground it up like hamburger and do like a 5-to-1. So you do like 5 pounds of hamburger, 1 pound of beef liver, mix it all up together, make something spicy like chili or something, and you won't even notice there's liver in there. And then you get a multivitamin basically with your food.
That's a great idea. And the organs in general are very inexpensive, very inexpensive.
Yeah.
They sell them for
Yeah.
nothing because most of the people not eat them. So
Exactly.
anyway,
Tongue,
Craig,
liver,
let me ask you something. And this is intriguing to me because I believe that in our modern world, more and more often people are changing the pattern of sleeping. And because they are more attached to the electronics, they are looking at videos until late at night. They're also snacking and eating a lot more. They don't let the body rest. So how important is sleeping in when you guys are doing a protocol for somebody? One of your clients is going to this keto or carnivore diets. How important is the sleeping?
Huge, huge. Especially, if weight loss is the goal, we'll start with macros, cutting out all dairy. Next thing's probably sleep. Like that's how important it is. I see it myself. If I get a bad night of sleep, I am a bottomless pit the next day. Like my hunger it doesn't stop. And that's what happens. If you don't get a good night's sleep, you're just going to be more hungry all day the next day and you're going to eat more. And if your weight loss is your goal, it's just going to be detrimental. But also for just health and wellness. Yeah. Circadian rhythms have been connected to so many things with health. And that's the rhythm of, going to bed and getting up and the sun cycle that goes around with that. In the evening, naturally, you should be getting less blue light. And naturally you would, because the sun's setting, that red, sunset. And then after the sun's gone, you don't have any blue light. And that's the way the body is set up. And there's something called the PCN center in the brain, which there's a receptor in the eye for blue light, and it connects to that PCN center in the brain. And when there's no blue light coming into the eye, they start to produce melatonin. And that's your body's natural, I'm drowsy hormone, right? But what happens today? We have, fluorescent lights. We've got computer screens, TV screens, iPads, phones. Everything is, blue light in the eye all evening long. And so your body's not naturally producing that melatonin. And that, so it can be really important to wear like blue light blocking glasses. If you have to, you can't get away from the screens in the evening, you put them on when the sun sets and you just wear them through the evening and you'll naturally get better, drowsiness, fall asleep, better sleep overnight. Those are really important things. And you cannot discount sleep. We get clients all the time how do you sleep? Oh, I sleep great. Oh yeah. How many hours you get? 4 or 5. And it's like, no, you got to get
That's not too
8
good.
hours of good sleep. Yeah.
My husband wasn't too good at sleeping until we bought our sauna. We got an infrared sauna from Clear Light Saunas. And every night we start going to that sauna and he sleeps through the night since then because the relaxation. And so that alone helped him tremendously to go through the night. And I can say that is just a huge benefit to the health because I can feel the benefit. He can see the benefit. He sees himself more energetic to the day, more rested, more alert, so it's good. And I can see the benefit of sleeping well. It's just a dramatic difference before and after.
Yeah, saunas are great. We have this same sauna. It's awesome for detoxing too, with Lyme and some of the things I had going on. It's really great for that. That there's that stress of the body. Today we're always in these, air conditioned, perfectly temperatured rooms. And that's why all the extremes are good. Not only sauna, but cold therapy is really great too, to get the body, shock the body and just get the brown cell or brown fat activation that happens when you do that, which is beneficial too for metabolism and everything. So yeah, that's great.
Let me ask you something, Craig. The people that come to your consultation and Maria's, do you have a lot of clients that came to you with pre-diabetic conditions or deep into the diabetes? And tell us your take on the keto diet and carnivore on helping those.
Yeah, definitely. We have, I don't know, thousands of, diabetic clients that we've had over the years, Maria's been helping clients for almost 20 years now. So we've gotten tons, we actually, I put together just a sampling, but it's gotten pretty big of some of the client testimonies that we've had on our blog. You go to the success stories on the top right there, click on that, and there's all of these people, people have lost over 200 pounds, and then all these reversal of health. And diabetes is a big one, right? Because we actually have, A1C is the average blood glucose level over a 3-month period. That's what an A1C level is. And we had a client, it went from a 10.6, I think it was, A1C, which is really high. Very much, diabetic is usually, we would say in the high fives, but I think that 6 point something is the medical community's diabetic range.
High there.
Way above that. In 3 months, which again, it's a 3-month test. In 3 months, when he retested his A1C after changing to this kind of diet, it was down to 5.4.
Wow.
In 3 months. That is the complete reversal of his diabetes from that, from a blood glucose, perspective. That's incredible, and, we've done whole videos on, what it is, the mechanisms behind it. But, obviously adding lots of sugar and carbs is going to raise your blood glucose and raise your need for insulin, and that as a roller coaster. But also there's a secondary component, which is probably even more important, in that your fat cells, okay, everybody has something called a personal fat threshold. Okay, that's basically how much fat cells you have. When you're young, you make new fat cells, but then at a certain age, you stop making new ones and you just kind of fill up the ones you have or shrink them. And that's your personal fat threshold. And that's why you can have somebody who's, 110 pounds and type 2 diabetic, because their fat cells are stuffed and inflamed, but they've only got a few, they have a small number of fat cells, right? They don't have a lot of fat cells, but the ones they do have are overstuffed, and they become insulin resistant and reject insulin, say, I don't want to store any more fat, I'm full. And that's insulin resistance at the fat cell level. Or you can have somebody who's 100 pounds overweight and they don't show type 2 diabetes yet in their labs and their glucose levels or anything, because they have so many fat cells. They have lots and lots of fat cells genetically, or just, from when they were a kid, they made a lot of them, and they're not all stuffed and full. So they're not diabetic yet. They're not insulin resistant. And so that is an important component to understand too, when you talk about reversing diabetes.
Seems like a diabetes is more like, we know it's a metabolic disease, but it's like a metabolic disease as a consequence of a lifestyle, don't you think?
Definitely. Again, the high carbohydrate intake not only affects the blood glucose so much, but whenever you have high carbs in the diet and some fat, which, you're always going to have fat with it too, with standard American diet or anything, the carbs will displace the fat. The carbs take priority over the fat. You have to burn the carbs first, so the fat gets stored away. And so you're just displacing burning your own fat, because you got to burn out the carbs first. And so those things, lead to all that metabolic dysfunction over time.
Craig, you are an engineer, and I know you love to study how the mechanisms in our body works as the other systems. You're an electrical engineer. I'm a civil engineer. But it seems like our bodies have an intelligence on prioritizing what they have to do.
Yeah, very much so.
What are the implications of consumption of alcohol in regular basis?
Yeah, I will say our bodies are very smart on prioritizing in general. Like when you were vegan or vegetarian, the body's going to stop making the enzymes and things that are required for digesting meat, because it doesn't have to, right? Why make something and spend the energy to make something if it's not being used, right? So that's why a lot of people that when they reintroduce meat, they have a little bit of a struggle. They got to build up the body's got to start making these enzymes and to digest the meat again. But that's the kind of priority that the body does. But when it comes to fuels, alcohol is a fuel as well that the body can burn, right? But there's no place to store alcohol. There's no place in the body that you can store it. And so remember earlier we talked about the fuel tanks, right?
Yes.
You got your small carbohydrate one, you got your big your big fat tank. Well, there's no place to store alcohol. And so what happens is you get alcohol in the blood and the body's got to burn it off right away because there's no place to put it. And so if you got a lot of alcohol in the bloodstream, or really any alcohol in the bloodstream, the body's got to burn that instead of burning carbs and fat, because it has to. Too much alcohol in the blood, you can die, right? It's got to start burning it off. And so what happens when you drink the alcohol? The carbs and fat that came in the meal get stored away because it's got to burn the alcohol. That's oxidative priority, it's called. So if you have alcohol in the meal and weight loss is your goal, alcohol is going to be detrimental to that
your
goal.
Enemy.
It's going to be your enemy for weight loss, because when you're drinking the alcohol, anything else you consume is just kind of getting stored away.
Besides, it's also not good for sleeping. So you're not sleeping well, you're not losing the weight.
Yeah, and it reduces testosterone in men, and a lot of other hormonal issues too.
Wow. I mean, I just see the normalization of the drinking in our society is big, and people don't understand how the implications of heavy drinking, constantly drinking. Having a social drink here and there is okay, but constantly drinking can be very detrimental to the body.
Yeah, definitely.
I had a doctor a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Mike Gutrodaria. He is a specialist on the microbiome. What he was telling us about the disruption of the microbiome by alcohol was incredible. You basically are killing every single good stuff you have in your microbiome in your intestinal tract. Is just devastated.
Yeah, definitely. And then you get people who say, "Oh, the benefits of red wine," and try to spin it that way, and there's no benefits that are going to outweigh the negatives.
I know, and again, sometimes when people are including too many vegetables, basically for you to feel satisfied with vegetables and comfortable with what you eat, you have to consume a lot. But also something that at the long run, and that's what I noticed when I was a vegetarian, is that the composition of your skin, your nails, your hair is not the best. When you consume the animal products, everything, your nails, your skin, mobility, the collagen under the, is just a lot better.
Definitely. The collagen is a big component of it, but also there's compounds in plants that can be irritating to a lot of people. Things called anti-nutrients, which are, compounds the body doesn't want. They're basically the plant's natural defense system against insects and things. And so when we consume them, the body has to detox them and get rid of them. Things like oxalates and glucosinolates and lectins and in moderation and a healthy metabolism, healthy body, the body can detox and deal with those things. But you get somebody like me, that's, I think, one of the reasons that I have so much struggle when I add plants, because my body's already dealing with so much to detox with Lyme and everything, that adding the extra load on the body with those anti-nutrients is probably too much for it. It's important to understand all those things, what you can tolerate and what your state is from a metabolism and all of that.
And again, I mean, everybody's different. Some people are more tolerant to those plants. I can eat plants all day long if I want to. I don't feel like it because I feel a lot more energetic when I eat the meats, and again, I eat my organs and it's just good. But some others are very, very sensitive to the lectins on the tomatoes or on the beans or oxalates on the kale. I mean, are people that they have rashes, they got mobility problems, they can get swelling, under the eyes and rashes. And I mean, can be very detrimental to their health.
And even other things like dairy, which, we talk a lot about, gluten is a very common allergen.
Gluten.
But dairy is even more common than gluten, right? If you look at it, as far as the population and everything goes. But, one of the things, we had a client recently that had this terrible psoriasis on her foot. Like her whole foot was red and scabs and just looked so painful. And in 1 month of changing her diet and basically, going keto but with dairy free, it was completely cleared up. And, she was taking a $6,000 a month drug for the psoriasis, and it basically wasn't doing much of anything. And in 1 month of her changing her diet, it was completely gone.
Wow, that is remarkable. That is remarkable.
Food is medicine.
Food is medicine, and you are what you eat. So talking about what you eat, what did you eat today, Craig?
Yeah. See, for breakfast, I had a steak and some eggs. And then this evening, I had some hamburgers with some cheese on them, bunless burgers. Just the patty, some
just
cheese, and yeah, it was great.
Oh my God! So you eat twice a day?
Typically, yeah.
We do too. Only twice. We start eating our first meal is between 11:30, and the next one be probably around 3:34. Close my kitchen. I'm a happy girl because I don't need to be cooking at night. This is perfect.
Yeah. Well, 2 meals, there's less prepping, less cooking, less cleanup, less shopping. Like it all adds up.
I may give my husband a snack in between, and it may be a protein shake after he works out, just because he needs more protein than I have. So that just works just fine. But in general, Craig, what is, in your opinion, like the proper human diet? What is, like what you're saying is in the research, the best way to keep the biological systems in the human body working in an optimal way?
Yeah, I think in any context, having a proper, a good amount, the required amount for your body size of animal proteins is important for anybody. No matter if you're keto, carnivore, even low carb might work well for some people, athletes, etc. Everybody across that spectrum, you have to prioritize protein and get enough complete animal proteins. Not like, for example, pea protein is like 0.6 as far as the protein bioavailability or spectrum of, compared to beef, right, which is 1. So you need almost twice as much pea protein as beef in order to build the same amount of muscle or trigger the same amount of muscle protein synthesis, right? And so complete animal proteins, I'm talking, for basically everything from eggs to beef, pork, poultry, fish, chicken, all those kind of sources.
Do you think that that proper diet is anti-aging or better aging?
There's a lot of nuance in that. And some people will say the more mTOR or triggering muscle building you have, it's an aging pathway, but it's never been quantified in any way. And I look at it as quality of life. Like, if you're getting old and you're frail and because you've been under eating protein and now you're in a wheelchair in your last 10 years of life and etc., but you live an extra 6 months longer than me and I'm vital and I'm active and strong, that's a completely different quality of life as we age. So
Absolutely.
That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. And as we age, the building of the muscle is protecting the bone structure as well, protecting our organs, our heart, our brains. I mean, exercising as we age, as the consumption of the protein, I believe, is fundamental for the aging process, for the better aging process. It's not like we're not aging, but we can age much better, stronger. And, I live in Florida. Our population, our senior population in Florida is very large. And more and more and more, we're having the people coming into, okay, I want to know what is the best diet for me to be vital, for be living longer. So I'm getting, they want to live their lives to the fullest, as you said. It's about the quality of life. So anytime we get with experts such as yourself, I would love to have Maria in the future. We need to get this girl power, telling the people here how to eat properly, how to include these nutrient-rich foods into their daily diet, and educate the families to do the same. we're doing a great service to humanity, because more and more people are listening. Many are driving the cars, driving the kids to school. They are at night cooking. They are listening to this podcast. They're understanding the message. They are getting, it's clicking because two people like you and me are talking about it. And that is the key of, spreading the word.
I completely agree. And, we're very much, as far as like a business standpoint, a rising tide lifts all boats. So, the more the word gets out, the more, there's obviously so many people still in this country that need to hear about this and need to have this to reverse their issues. Like the maps of the United States, I'm sure you've seen where the obesity rates keep going up. I just saw one of the recent ones, and it's over 50% obese in a couple states now. Over half of the people, not overweight, obese category.
It's very sad.
Crazy.
But you see them, Craig, the normalization of the obese. You cannot even tell anymore, because then you're being bullied or you're just body shaming. But it's very sad when you see the family, all the family together overweight. You normally can, deduct that people, they're eating the wrong foods and more what they should. And the kids, the mother, the father, they're all overweight. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So more and more we have to spread this word on wellness and nutrition. And I want to thank you very, very much for this time that you shared with us. I know you are in Maui, a few hours behind us. And I hope you enjoyed your time there. I'm going to see you in August in Dixon,
Yes.
Tennessee, in the Low Carb for
I'm
Better
excited.
Health event in Dixon, Tennessee on August the 26th. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to be with a lot of good people there, and the guest speakers such as yourself and Dr. Ken Berry and many others going to be there. Amanda Decker organizing this event. This is great. We're going to have to make a splash on the community so more and more people learn from these protocols that are very helpful for human life. So thank you very much, Craig. Appreciate it. And for you out there, remember that health is wealth for the body, mind, and soul. If you like the content of this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast right here and hit the notification button so you will be notified every time we come with new content. If you want to write a review, I would appreciate it very much, because more people will find about our podcast and spreading the message of wellness. Take care.
Thank you very much for listening. And if you like the information that we shared with you today, please subscribe to the Expressoul Health and Wellness podcast and follow us in the social media outlets of your choice. Until next time, please remember, health is wealth for the body, mind, and soul.